what's your height and weight? I learned my lesson not to ask her weight in a video a couple years ago. How is the passenger accommodation on the Goldwing, sweetie? Does it feel comfortable?
Yes.
It does? Okay. Snake has interrupted. Snake has interrupted the filming. This is not a dangerous snake, okay? This is a safe snake. Hello everyone and welcome to Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in today. As we begin, I have two very simple requests. One, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And two, please use my affiliate links whenever you're shopping for parts and gear. I really appreciate that. All right, this is the 2025 Honda Goldwing Tour DCT 50th Anniversary Edition. The Honda Goldwing has always been synonymous with luxury motorcycle touring, but with the large capacity adventure bikes increasingly encroaching into the motorcycle touring category, is this $30,000, 850 pound or 385 kilogram heavyweight touring motorcycle still worthy of your consideration? In addition to adventure touring bikes, there's also the competition from bikes like BMW's K1600 six-cylinder series, also the much lighter weight and sportier BMW R1250 and R1300RT. You've also got competition from the cruiser-based touring motorcycles like the Indian Challenger, the Indian Pursuit, the Harley Road Glide Limited, and bikes like that. So the question is, would you still choose a Goldwing over all the other options out there? Much has been said about the Goldwing's superior comfort for riding with a passenger, and that's very true, but does that overcome the compromises in terms of the sheer size, weight, bulk, and high expense of the Honda Goldwing? Today, I'm going to review this bike in extreme detail. We're going to go over it with a fine-tooth comb, and we're going to try to answer the question, should you consider this bike over the alternatives out there, and is it worth the $30,000 price tag? All right, as we jump into this in-depth review, I'd really like to know from you all out there in the audience, would you still consider purchasing a Honda Goldwing, or maybe you have decided to purchase a Goldwing, considering the price tag, the weight, and the ever-increasing competition from other motorcycles out there? Drop a comment down below and let's have a discussion about whether this bike is still relevant in 2025. All right, let's cover the specs. So the base price on this model, which is the 50th Anniversary DCT Tour, is $30,200 US. Now, if you want the normal color, I believe they have silver and maybe some others, that would take $500 off, so it would come in just under $30,000. Now, of course, Honda offers the non-tour models, the regular Goldwing models, and those cost quite a bit less. Also, you can get an airbag-equipped model, which costs quite a bit more. Wait. Can you get on the Goldwing to show the riding position? Here, sit back here. All right, how is the passenger accommodation on the Goldwing, sweetie? Does it feel comfortable?
Yes.
It does? Okay. Would you like to go for a ride on this bike?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, I think you're a little bit too short. Your legs can't reach the foot pegs and your hands probably can't reach that. So I think you're still a little bit too small, okay? All right, so the wet weight, fully fueled up, ready to ride on this bike is 847 pounds for this model, 384 kilograms. Other models, again, if you don't get DCT and if you don't get the Tour model, you're going to be coming in slightly less. And then I believe if you get the airbag, that will be slightly more, but not too much of a difference there. The engine on the Goldwing, one of the hallmark pieces of the Goldwing, is this right here. This is the 1833cc liquid-cooled, horizontally opposed, which means it looks like this. You've got 3 cylinders coming out on each side. So that's what horizontally opposed means. 6-cylinder engine. How many motorcycles have a 6-cylinder engine? Well, the Goldwing has it. The compression ratio is 10.5 to 1. That's pretty low, and that means that number one, it's an under-stressed engine, so you can get the long maintenance intervals. It's going to last for hundreds of thousands of miles like a car engine. And that low compression ratio means you can use regular octane gas and you don't need to use premium gas. Transmission on the Goldwing, you have an option of either getting what this bike has, which is the 7-speed automatic dual clutch transmission with forward and back walk mode, or you can get a 6-speed manual transmission. The final drive on this bike, of course, is via shaft drive. Suspension on the Goldwing is extremely unique. Let me try to stick the camera in here and show you the front suspension design. It is not a conventional front fork, not at all. You can see in here what I'm talking about. So the front is a double wishbone suspension, and it provides a smoother ride and isolates you more from bumps than a conventional fork. Plus, when you're hard on the brakes, the front end of the bike does not dive as you would get with a conventional fork. You've got 4.3 inches or 110 millimeters of travel on the front. The rear, which you can't really see because it's covered up by the bodywork, but it's a ProLink single shock. It also has a single-sided swing arm, and it has 4.1 inches or 104 millimeters of travel. Now, these travel measurements may seem low if you're coming from an adventure-style motorcycle, but in a touring category, this is typically what you're going to see because it allows them to keep a nice low seat height and not make the bike too tall. Now on the suspension, you do have electronic suspension control for your damping settings and also for your preload settings. The brakes on the Goldwing are world-class and some of the best motorcycle brakes I've ever tested. On the front, you have these dual 320 millimeter discs with these massive and incredible 6-piston calipers. That means on the front of this bike, you have 12 brake pistons going to work when you're stopping. 12 pistons. I remember riding a KLR 650 back in the day with 1 piston. This has 12. The rear caliper is a 316 millimeter with a 2-piston, and well, it's really too hard to get the camera under here, but if we manage to get the camera under here, there's also a little brake piston for the emergency brake as well. Tires and wheels on the Goldwing are interesting size. So on the back, you have a 200 width, 55 aspect ratio, 16 inch. 16 inch is typical on these kind of bikes because it allows them to get the bike lower to the ground and give you more room for the integrated luggage. It's also very, very wide for a motorcycle tire. Coming around to the front tire, it's a 130/70/18, which is kind of a more typical size that you might expect. The electronics package on the Goldwing, it has almost everything. Electronic suspension, cruise control, linked ABS brakes, traction control, riding modes, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. It has hill start assist. Extra features, you've got an electric windshield, you've got a parking brake, you've got walk mode forward and back, built-in sound system. You can see the speakers here and rear speakers back here. You've got this integrated luggage with a 61-liter top trunk and 60 liters combined with the saddlebag, so 30 liters per side. You've got heated seats for the driver and the passenger. You have heated grips, and I could go on, but you get the idea. This bike is loaded with features. All right, now the incredible thing about the Goldwing engine has to do with the way it produces the power and torque. And as far as I know, as far as I can understand, the way that this bike produces torque, the amount that it produces at low RPM is pretty much unparalleled in the motorcycling world. So the power output of the Goldwing is not super impressive on paper. It's around 125 horsepower at the crank. That's for the manual transmission though. The DCT actually has maybe 5 to 10 less horsepower than that because of the way the DCT produces power, or manages the power going through that automatic transmission. So that doesn't seem super impressive, but what is super impressive is the torque and the torque curve of this bike, which is ridiculous. It's 126 foot-pounds of torque, which is one of the highest for any motorcycle out there. But the interesting thing about that, and I'll try to throw up a dyno chart here on the screen, is that it produces over 100 foot-pounds of torque from idle. From idle. I'll say that again. It produces 100 foot-pounds of torque at idle or above that really. And that's, I'm saying 100 foot-pounds is the torque kind of on the dyno, but basically it produces peak torque from idle to about 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, which is ridiculous. So right at idle, you have peak torque, which is crazy. What this translates to is that for a touring bike that's carrying luggage and passengers, when you accelerate, no matter what RPM you're at, even if you're in a high gear at a super low RPM, this bike has insanely good pulling power right off of idle RPM. And that makes it incredibly unique for a motorcycle. And it just makes the engine a delight to ride, in addition to, of course, how unbelievably smooth and refined this opposed 6-cylinder engine is. All right, let's take a look at the seat height, the ergonomics, the riding position of the Goldwing. One of the great benefits of this motorcycle is it's pretty low to the ground. The seat height is 29.3 inches or 744 millimeters. Very, very nice and low if you're coming from other cruiser bikes and things like that. In the adventure bike world, we're often seeing seat heights of 34 inches, 800, 900 millimeters. It's just crazy. So thankfully we have a touring bike that has a very low seat height. They're able to do that because they have this flat engine design that's way down in the chassis. The fuel tank is way down under here, and they've really done a great job getting the seat low to the ground. Let me take the bike off the center stand so I can show you the reach to the ground. Now my dimensions, my specifications are 5'10", 1.78 meters or 178 centimeters. I have a 32-inch leg inseam. So I am an average size American male person. All right, so you can see, look at the bend in my knee. Look how much room when I stand up. Look how low I am to the ground. At my height, this bike, and I can even lean the bike over like that, because this bike is so low compared to what I'm used to anyway, I have great confidence in low speed handling and parking and those types of situations. This is also really good when your passenger's getting on. It's not so high up in the air. This is an amazing benefit of the Goldwing that not enough people talk about. Now, let's talk about the riding position, the ergonomics. The Goldwing is, it depends what you're used to. Everything is relative. If you're used to an adventure motorcycle or a sport touring bike, this is going to feel a bit different. So the way this is different is that on something like, let's say, a BMW RT or even a GS, the handlebars will be further forward and further down. On the Goldwing, if you're not used to this, the handlebars feel very close to you and very high up. So for me, I can really lean back and cruise like this. It's a matter of personal preference if you like it or not. Most of the Goldwing buyers, they do like this extremely upright, almost lazy boy riding position. I'm used to bikes that put me a little bit more, you know, a little bit more forward and down. I find that personally a little more comfortable because it takes the weight off my butt and my tailbone. This puts a lot of weight on my butt and tailbone. Thankfully, you have a very wide seat and you can get a backrest if you want. But the ergonomics are unique. The legroom I find to be very reasonable. I would like a highway peg for stretch my leg out on long days. I found myself just sticking my leg out when I was riding those 500-mile days over and over. But overall, the legroom is pretty good. The pegs are pretty low, which means that when you corner aggressively, you will scrape the foot pegs, but that's another story that we'll cover separately. Good legroom, very relaxed, upright ergonomics, almost too relaxed for some people. But I think most people looking for a touring bike are really, really going to like this. All right, so I've got the wonderful production assistant, Maggie, here.
Yeah, I'm not paid though.
You're not paid?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we'll figure that out later.
Anyways, hello. Good to see everyone still.
I think we have the same bank account, sweetie.
Okay, can we go on?
So this is your first time sitting on a Goldwing, I think. Can you tell us, how does it feel like compared to other bikes that you've ridden on before?
Oh, this feels like a sofa. This is nice. This feels so luxurious. It's like not only your back support, but there's padding. But honestly, I think any Goldwing purchaser would expect that though. Like, this is really nice.
Yeah,
this is really nice.
So you've got the big backrest, because this is the tour model. You've got kind of the armrest.
Yes.
And then you've got also these, would you use these grab handles down here?
Grab handle where?
The by your
Oh!
legs. Would you use those, you think? Or is it too far down?
I think it depends. I mean, of course, right now I'm sitting, the bike is not moving, but when like things are turning, then I think I would use it. It's nice to have it.
Yeah.
There's a difference between having something, not needing it, not using it, than not having it at the first place. So this is nice.
Okay. All right, how does the seat feel?
It's really nice. It's really nice.
It's really wide, right?
Yeah, like I feel kind of really, because as a lady, I'm sitting like right here, so. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways.
All right. And then how's
By the way, this is not scripted.
That's not scripted, yeah.
It's not scripted.
And then the footrests, they look pretty comfortable, right?
They feel good. They feel good, and they're wide enough. You see how big it is? Yeah.
Yeah, they're really
and
big.
They're,
right?
yeah, they're big. So that's good. This is nice. This is really nice.
Okay, so I'm gonna put the camera on a tripod, then I'm gonna get on the bike and we'll take a picture of us together.
Okay.
So you just stay there. Okay, so I'll get on board and then people can see kind of how much room there is. And then what's your height and weight? I learned my lesson not to ask her weight in a video a couple years ago. But you're 5'4", right?
5'4".
So you're... Well,
my weight range is between 110 to 150. How about that?
Okay, a weight range.
Yeah,
there we go. That's good progress.
Yeah. And thanks for not kicking me, by the way. I was worried that you might accidentally kick me when you get on.
Yeah, sometimes I kick her.
Yeah. No, but this is not a problem. Like, because it's how wide it is. This is nice.
So like, I don't even, like right now, I don't even know you're back there unless you touch me. But I don't even, unless you grab my love handles.
I mean, can we... This might sound kind of crazy, but if you have a lot of luggage, would it be okay for me to put my backpack, like wear my backpack in the front and I hold on to you like this?
I guess you could, but I don't know why you would want...
No, which is good, because if people are traveling on a trip, this is good to have. I'm always thinking about traveling, going on a trip.
Okay.
So this is good. This is good. This is good. Like, see, this is a lot of room here. I will feel comfortable to put a backpack, and it's illegal to put a child in between us, right, in America.
In America, but in Asia they put 25 people on a scooter, so it's fine.
Right.
But I don't even notice you back there. Like I can't even feel that you're there.
Yeah, I can feel you neither. See, I'm not touching you at all.
There's so much room here for that.
Right.
So.
But again, that is expected on a Goldwing, right?
Yeah, that's why you would get a Goldwing.
Right.
I mean, the passenger comfort is the big deal about the Goldwing.
Well, but this is so pretty though.
Pretty?
This is really pretty.
Okay, yeah, it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, let's say you want to get a little bit sporty on your Goldwing. How does this thing handle? So for the transmission, you've got a couple options here on the DCT. I can go into manual mode and I can control the gears manually, and it will hold the gear that I select on the handlebar control. So I'm going to do that a little bit and then kind of show you the sporty nature of the Goldwing. See how it holds the gears all the way to 6,000 RPM if I use the manual mode. It's actually pretty fun. The brakes are amazing. It tips into corners pretty well. There's a lot of weight there, and because of the wide tire, it does take a little effort, but it actually handles very nicely. Yeah, so much torque. It's just third gear. Oh yeah. Now if I go into manual mode, and I can also use sport mode or whatever, but automatic mode, you can see the transmission will start to shift for me. Let's go as fast as possible. 85 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour. You don't even know you're going 90. It's just so incredibly smooth. Let me go back into manual mode here. It actually builds speed deceptively quick. Again, handling, it takes some effort to push it through, but it does handle well. You will reach a limitation on cornering clearance once you get to a certain lean angle, and you'll start to scrape, and it can be pretty scary, but the clearance is decent, and raising up your suspension preload can help quite a bit with that. But overall, the Goldwing, it actually handles better. It's more fun to ride on these canyon roads than you would believe by looking at it. This thing is so smooth, I just have no idea when I'm going 90 miles an hour. Alright, so I'm going to crack my helmet visor a little bit. You might hear a little more wind, but I want you to hear the sort of the wailing sound of this 6-cylinder engine. It sounds so nice. Actually, I'll open my helmet all the way up so you can really hear this engine. So let's do like a 0 to 80 miles an hour to 0, show you the acceleration and the braking. I'll go ahead and use the manual mode just so that in case it wants, sometimes it'll shift early, especially in a tour mode. So I'll use the manual mode to go ahead and do this. So I'll brake torque a little bit, get ready to do my shifting here. Okay, go. $80 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour, stop. Yeah, that's, whew. The brakes are amazing. The acceleration is better than you would think. It's so smooth that you don't really notice how fast you get going on this bike. And it is a very hot day out here, so I want to be careful not to overheat things or get my brakes too hot. It is almost 100 degrees Fahrenheit as I'm filming this. Very, very hot day. Let me go into drive mode and give you full acceleration and drive mode, showing you the automatic shifting. Full power. So even from braking from 100 miles an hour back down to 30, it just does it quickly and safely. There's no dive in the chassis. It is a just phenomenal motorcycle. For how much this thing weighs, the performance is just very, very impressive. And you could see how in the automatic shifting mode and the drive mode, it was shifting around 500 to 5,000 RPM. That's because the torque starts to drop off after that, and the DCT programming knows that. Now, when I did it earlier in the manual mode, you could see how it was sort of, I was able to hold it out longer in the RPM and shift with the trigger switches. I mean, it really is impressive on a road like this for such a big, heavy bike. I know I keep saying that, but it truly, truly is. I also want to tell you about the linked braking system on the Goldwing. So the linked brakes, what they do is that if I jam on the rear lever like this right now, see, I'm not touching the front brake. It stops so good because the rear brake will link to the front and give you a lot of stopping power. You know, if you were like on a sport bike on a track day or something, you wouldn't want that because you'd want the full manual control of the rear brake. But on this bike, I think that strategy makes sense to give you maximum braking, even if you're untrained or inexperienced and you just mash the rear brake lever and out the front. Now, if I use the front brake, it also activates the rear for me in the right amount. So it's linked braking. That's a safer system. It works extremely well. You don't, it's kind of in the background, and it just keeps you safe and stops you very, very quickly. That's kind of crazy how I can do that rear brake. Let me show you that again. I'm going to go 60 miles an hour downhill, take my right hand off the handlebar, just jam the rear brake, and look, it's applying the front brake very strongly, actually, just from touching that rear brake lever. That's incredibly impressive performance. All right, the sun has just gone behind the mountain there, so you're going to lose some of the red looking paint here, and it's going to look more black. So let's start with a tour and start with the lighting. So I've got the hazard flashers on so you can see the turn signals. You've got the fog lights down here integrated in the front of the engine trim pieces. Then you've got these big, beautiful LED headlights here. And then you have these huge, beautiful turn signals integrated into the mirrors. The lighting signature on this bike is dramatic and wide, and you can really see it coming down the road. And it's something I really appreciate. Coming around to the back of the Goldwing, you've got this wonderful, again, wide, dynamic lighting signature with these big integrated tail and turn signals here into the hard luggage. The mirrors on the Goldwing also fold in if you need to fold them in for storage or for transportation. Working our way around the side, we've already covered the chassis, the wheels, and the brakes. Coming around to the side, of course, the engine. This is a plastic or rubber kind of bumper for when you, if you do, unfortunately, you know, drop the bike over. This will give some protection for your engine there. I'm going to try to get into all the little details on this bike because I think they're interesting. Coming around, you can see the side fairings and how they protect you from the wind, although they're not as big as the fairings on the old Goldwing. This is the storage compartment here. Oops, I left my stuff in there. I need to get that out. I just did a 3,000 mile ride with this bike. Little storage compartment for stuff like that. Also in here, you've got the release for the gas cap. So to get gas on the bike, you open the storage compartment, you press that lever. This then pops open. You then unscrew this cap, which you then have to put somewhere. I like to put it here. Then you can go ahead and get fuel. So it takes a few seconds. It's a little bit more of a procedure, but it's not a big deal. And I like having that fuel cap covered so you don't have an unsightly fuel cap. The foot pegs on this bike are extended. They've got these sort of wings that come back, so you have more support for your feet. Big brake lever. You can see dual clutch transmission on this model. Passenger foot pegs, you know, it's a Japanese bike, so listen to that. This is super satisfying click. Very nice and big passenger pegs. You've got the exhaust. Sweetie, I'm working, okay? I already told you. Got the exhaust coming back here. These, there are covers that go over these. These are transportation hooks, so when you're transporting a bike on a trailer, which I have to do to get it back to Honda, but these do have a plastic cover that go over them to make it look cosmetically much better. The exhaust, you can see the exit from the exhaust right there, which is kind of nice. The exhaust does have a nice sound to it. You can see the seating here, driver and passenger. We've kind of looked at that in the other segments. This little cap allows a backrest to be installed, and the backrest would come up through here for a driver's backrest. You've got the grab handles here. You've got the speakers, the armrest, and the backrest, because this is the tour model for your passenger, which passengers love this, of course. Opening up the luggage on the Goldwing, you can see it's got these gas.
I'm so sorry. We don't mean to interrupt you. I am so sorry. Oh my God.
The snake has interrupted. Snake has interrupted the filming. Hi, Snakey. This is not a dangerous snake, baby. This is not a dangerous snake, okay? This is a safe snake.
This is a huge one.
It's a large snake, yeah. But it's not a rattlesnake. It's not poisonous, baby. It's a good snake. It eats mice and things like that. No, no, no. You don't have to be scared of snakes, sweetie. When you open up these bags, they have like these gas shocks so they don't just fly open. So that's very nice because you wouldn't want that. The bags are about 30 liters. They're not as big as I would like. I wish they were a little bit larger, but of course you have waterproof gaskets. Now on the other side, and the release button is kind of small. It's right here. Now on the other side, this other pannier is about the same size, but the difference on this one is you've got a USB port. So if you want to charge something inside the case, you have a USB-C port there. And then you've got like a little place you can strap down your toolkit and your manual and things like that. Since we're talking about luggage, let's take a look inside the trunk. 61-liter trunk. They made this bigger in, I believe, 2021 when they did a slight redesign. You can fit 2 helmets in here, and it's very spacious. And I believe this is standard. You get this little storage net here. This is a great trunk space, extremely useful when you're on the road. You also have like these plates here, which I believe there's a factory accessory to put a cargo rack up here if that was something that you needed to do. You've also got a nice little Goldwing logo here. Now some of the little trim things might be a special feature for the 50th anniversary. Like here you can see where it says 50th anniversary Goldwing. This is your control for your passenger heated seat. Now the driver heated seat is controlled through the dash, which I'll show you here in a minute. You can see your side stand, you can see the included center stand, oil, you know, typical stuff. Now, okay, here's an interesting thing. This is the handbrake. So what this does is it connects to a separate piston on the rear brake. It's extremely useful because you can't park this bike in gear because it's automatic and it reverts to neutral whenever you turn it off. You have a parking brake so that you set that. And it's got a nice satisfying sound that locks the bike in place when you're using the side stand, not the center stand, of course. And the bike can't roll. It's very, very useful when parking. I really, really like this feature. Take that off so I don't get surprised when I take it off the center stand. Now there's another storage right here. You pop that open, they give you a little foam thing. It's designed for your cell phone, to hold your cell phone. This is very big. This is the key to the Goldwing, and the 50th anniversary you get this special key. Now there's USB in here, USB-C. So you can have your phone in here if you want charging, and then of course it connects for Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and integration with phone calls and everything like that. Or you can do what I did and mount your phone up here with a separate mount, an aftermarket mount, and I kind of ran the cable out the side of the cover here, which wasn't ideal, but it did work. Mirrors on the Goldwing are extremely effective. They're not mounted to the handlebar, they're mounted to the body of the bike, which gets them kind of below your arm. They have a great view to the back, and they're adjustable for all your angles as well. Now, you're going to ask what this is. If you pop this up, just, come on, why aren't you, there we go. What this does is, especially when the windshield is up high, let me show you, it takes a little bit of the air coming underneath the windshield and directs it here towards your helmet and your chest to give you just a little bit more airflow on a hot day, which is a little bit noticeable, or you can snap it back down into place if you don't want that. Speaking of the windshield, you've got the adjustment here, and you can see the range of adjustment is very, very significant. In the low position, I can look over the windshield, I can get wind to my face. In the high position, I'm looking through the windshield and the wind is completely up over my head and my shoulders and everything like that. For your switch gear, because it's a DCT, you've got a little bit more switch gear. You've got a downshift button here, and the upshift button trigger is back here. You've got the walk mode controls, which I'll show you in a separate segment, the turn signals, the audio source, the horn, some phone controls, the home button. This integrates here, I'll show you. The keypad for and navigating around the menu of the bike, volume control for your audio, the windshield we already talked about, your headlight switch. In the center here, you have some more controls. You have your fog lights, your heated grips, your heated seat, and that all comes up right here on the dash. Set, select an info, that controls your trip computer. I'll show you that. Home, back, enter button with a scroll wheel here and a push to select, which controls things in here. And then your ignition is a rocker switch with also a lock feature to lock the handlebars as well. And this light will light up in certain situations so you can see the ignition button. It was just beeping there because I tried to lock it and I didn't have the handlebars locked over. You've got a hazard light switch, cruise control activation switch, cruise control set, reset, and up and down control there. Automatic manual mode, your drive selection mode, which I always accidentally hit this thinking it's the start button. Start button's up here. On a lot of bikes, this will be a kill switch, and then you'll have to press to start down here. This is start, kill switch all in one, and this is your drive mode selection. And this is the riding mode switch. All right, let's turn on the ignition and show you the controls and dashboard of the bike. You've got these small instrument panels to the right, these LCDs, you've got some lights, and you've got this big analog speedo, analog tack, some more lights up on the top, and the big center screen for infotainment. I love this dash. It's automotive-like, and I think it's the best dash in the motorcycle industry by far. It's really incredible to use. Sorry for some of the glare. That's just the way it is when we're outside. It says Goldwing since 1975. Now, this is not a touchscreen, and that is one thing I should put in the cons. I kind of wish it was. Now, it's kind of far from the rider. You could lean forward and touch it, but on the Africa Twin, you get a touchscreen. On this bike, you don't, and you control things through here and through here. So starting over here, the trip computer, air temperature. Well, first of all, you can scroll through here using the select info and set button. So if I hit the select button, it scrolls through my different options here. And then if I hit info, well no, info actually controls this here on this part. So that's something different. But then set, then I can go through my different trip computers. I can see my riding range, I can see my tire pressures, and at the top I can see air temperature or the speed that my cruise control is set to. So those are my options there. Info button actually scrolls through information here on the TFT screen. Over here, you've got the gear position indicator, the riding mode, which you've got Tour, Sport, Econ, and Rain. Tour is like your normal street riding mode. Sport makes the shifting much more aggressive. Econ makes the shifting softer and dulls the power delivery. And then Rain makes the shifting softer and dulls the power delivery and probably dials up your traction control as well. Over here is a little info screen with your coolant temperature. It gives you any warnings if you have the luggage. If the side bags or the trunk are open, it will warn you here. It will also tell you when your side stand is down, and I really like that. And this is my suspension preload setting. All right, so if I hit my home screen on this, well, first of all, this controller, you've got all these functions here, and you'll learn to use it. It's not too bad. If I hit home, then I get to this screen here, and I can go through settings, phone, audio source, and suspension preload and intercom. Let's start with suspension preload. Now, the bike needs to be running to do this, but you can choose from one rider with luggage, two riders, or two riders with luggage. I personally found that I ran the two rider mode, which just gave me a little more preload, which I found makes the bike handle better, even though I'm just riding by myself. But I like a little more preload. I just liked how that felt, but you can change that how you want. So that's great. Now, if you go to home, you're gonna go back to this here. If I go into settings, you can do all your connections, your wireless audio. You've got a lot going on here. You can customize a whole lot of things, and I don't want to get too deep into this because there's so much you can do, and this video is already going to be very, very long. Function, auto cancel turn signal, hill start control. If I go into audio, you can see you have a whole bunch of settings here that you can adjust. You can customize a lot of things on the Goldwing. Headsets, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. Again, a lot of stuff like that. You can see your mobile connections. There's my phone. Travis is not here because he's dead. No, actually, I don't know who Travis is, but probably the person who had this bike before me, and hopefully he's not dead. So that's fine. Now, if I connect my phone to the bike through Android Auto, I can show you what that looks like here. All right, so with Android Auto connected, now the bike does have wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but I believe in order for that to work properly, there may be a workaround for it, but I believe you do need to have a helmet headset connected. Since I don't have that right now, I went ahead and plugged my phone into the USB port in this compartment, and I can show you how Android Auto functions. Now I can control, sorry for the glare again, I can control things through my left switch cluster here and move around, go home, go back, and I can have some level of control over what's going on. Right now, it's not the best, and sometimes there's things you can't do, and you'd like to be able to have like a touchscreen or something. But again, you don't have that option. But I found it to work pretty well to control things like navigation and podcasts and making and hanging up phone calls and whatever things you need to do like that. You can see here scrolling through some different podcasts. Having this integration in a motorcycle, I can't tell you how nice this is, because you're already used to using the applications on your phone, whether it's Google Maps or whatever mapping you use, the entertainment choices you use, making phone calls, you already know how to do that. And so it just mirrors those kind of applications here on the bike. So I found that to be very, very good. But again, it can be when you're riding down the road, sometimes you can't always do the exact function you want by using the buttons, but it's not too bad. And you've also got, again, don't forget you've got this here as well. All right, let me show you how the dual clutch transmission works and the walk modes, that kind of stuff. So right now the bike is turned off and I've got the parking brake set, so it can't roll, because when you park the bike, parking brake on when you park the bike, so you can see it's holding now with the parking brake, the bike will automatically go into neutral. You get an N here and an N here, so you can see that. So to start up the bike, do that. So we've got the bike started up. Now I can release my parking brake a little bit, not level ground, so it'll roll a little bit. To go into drive mode, I simply hit D here, And now to leave, I just slowly twist the throttle and I can easily ride off. Go back into neutral. I also can hit this AM button here to go between automatic and manual mode, depending on what kind of riding that I'm doing. Now, let me show you how the walk mode works, and which reverse and forward walk mode. And you only get this if you get the DCT, another reason to get the DCT. So, how this works is the following. Hold the front brake, press this little walk mode button here. It comes up on a dash, it gives you a little picture of a motorcycle with an arrow going front and back. Now, I can use the DCT trigger buttons forward and back. The front or the forward button on the DCT makes me walk forward. See, I'm not touching the throttle and I'm slowly walking forward. This is helpful for pulling into the garage, going into a parking spot, whatever the case may be. Now, I can go backwards as well. So watch this. Now I'm walking backwards, otherwise known as reverse. So reversing into a parking spot, whatever the case may be. Even with the passenger and luggage, it has enough power to reverse, and you can even reverse uphill because I've tested it. Reverse forward, now walk mode forward. And to disengage that, you can either just hit, I think you hit neutral. Yeah, you just hit neutral, or I think you can hit this button again to turn that off.
To properly test the touring capability of the Goldwing, I set out on a 7-day trip of over 3,200 miles or 5,100 kilometers across California, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Washington, and Oregon. I had one rest day, and I averaged about 500 miles or 800 kilometers per day during my riding days, with the last day being the longest at about 650 miles or 1,050 kilometers. This trip gave me ample opportunity to see how the wing performed doing what it is designed to do, which is covering a lot of miles in a lot of comfort. Several positive aspects really stood out. The engine is so smooth at any speed or any RPM, you can barely tell it is running. At high speeds above 80 miles an hour or 130 kilometers an hour, even while dealing with crosswinds and turbulence from semi-trucks, the wing is unbelievably stable due to its weight, suspension design, and aerodynamics. Weather protection is amazing, and I made good use of the adjustable windshield. The technology worked very well, although I would have greatly benefited from having adaptive cruise control, which you can't get on the Goldwing. The forward and reverse walk modes were very genuinely useful in gas station, restaurant parking lots, and parking for the night at hotels. The integrated luggage worked well, with the top box being much larger than the somewhat smaller side bags. I would highly recommend luggage liners to keep things from falling out of the side bags when you open them. Fuel mileage ranges between 38 miles a gallon or 6.2 liters per 100 kilometers when riding at high speeds, somewhere around 80 miles an hour or 130 kilometers an hour and upwards, but also up to 50 miles a gallon or 4.7 liters per 100 kilometers when riding at more moderate speeds, somewhere around 60 miles an hour or 100 kilometers an hour. Fuel range therefore varies dramatically between 150 to 250 miles or 240 to 400 kilometers, depending on the wind conditions, but mostly how fast you're riding. The bike suspension in most cases provides a very smooth ride even over smaller bumps, and the unique front suspension design that minimizes front-end dive under braking is really appreciated. Over larger bumps, it can run out of travel, and I also found the suspension to be slightly underdamped and undersprung even without the weight of a passenger. Overall, measured as a long-haul touring bike, the Goldwing stands above almost all other motorcycles and has very, very few flaws.
Okay, nighttime test of the Honda Goldwing. Turn on the ignition. We can see Starship Enterprise coming to life here. A lot of lights going on. So, switchgear is mostly backlit. Some of the things are not backlit, like the headlight switch, the volume, the windshield, the DCT buttons, but a lot of the stuff you can see here is, which is nice. On the center part, you have quite a bit of lighting here. This stuff's backlit. Over here, your hazard, cruise control, and drive mode stuff is backlit, but they didn't backlight the cruise control up and down or the stop-start switch. Overall, I think they did backlight the stuff that you need, like the finer controls. And then going up here to the dash, of course, it looks beautiful at night. It just really, really looks beautiful. So let's go for a ride and evaluate the headlight performance. Alright, so riding down this highway, the straight highway at night, can see the low beam here, which is pretty good for a motorcycle. Now my fog lights are surprisingly effective. There's my fog lights off and on. Most of the time on a motorcycle you get fog lights, they don't really do anything. On this bike they're surprisingly effective. Now let me turn on the high beam. The high beam has good reach, gets some light pretty far down the road, and is definitely a big difference from the low beam there. Alright, getting on to some twisty roads at nighttime on a Goldwing. As with most motorcycles, when you tip into a corner, the beam dips and you can't really see what's out in front of you there. You can see if I turn on the high beam, that helps quite a bit. However, the Goldwing would, oh, I just saw a tarantula. The Goldwing would really benefit from adaptive front lighting that steers through the corners, and I think at this price point it would be really nice to have that. Again, go back to the low beam, that's the fog light on, this is fog light off, fog light back on, high beam on, which then turns. I wish you could have the fog lights and the high beam on at the same time. That's kind of too bad that it doesn't let you do that. Overall, the headlight performance of the Goldwing is well above average for a motorcycle, and one of the best motorcycles I've tested. Although, I think it does get beaten by bikes that have adaptive lighting, and I really would like to see that added to the Goldwing. But overall, it's a pretty good performance from the lighting system on the bike. Alright, let's summarize the pros and cons, as I see it, to the Honda Goldwing DCT Tour. So, let's start with the pros. Number one for me, the unbelievably smooth running engine. There is simply not another motorcycle engine in the world that runs as smooth as a Goldwing. It's incredible in that way. Next up for me, also on the engine, is that the peak torque is available at idle. So at idle RPM, you have full torque of the motor available. That makes it incredible as a touring bike. And whenever you twist the throttle, no matter what RPM you're at or how much weight you're carrying, this bike has really, really good acceleration. Next up for me is the incredible stability of this bike going down the highway. Let me tell you, when you're at 80 to 90 miles per hour, and you're going on the freeway and you've got semi-trucks all around you, you've got crosswinds from thunderstorms and going through the desert, you've got all this. This motorcycle is so confidence inspiring. The extra weight of this bike actually helps in that situation, and combined with the incredible suspension design, the good aerodynamics, even when you get blown from the side by a big wind, this bike is so stable. Next up for me is the incredible accommodations here for the passenger. If you ride with a passenger, get this tour model, but the problem is they're never going to want to ride on another bike. After they experience these armrests, this backrest, this humongous seat, the comfort and smoothness of this bike, they're not going to want to ride your other bikes anymore, so be aware of that. Next up for me is the incredibly smooth shifting dual clutch transmission. I mean, this is a personal preference, but I would highly recommend you consider the DCT if you're getting a Goldwing. The 7-speed on here, it shifts unbelievably smoothly. You've got the ride modes to change how it shifts. You've got the forward and back walk modes. I think this is one of the best features of the bike, and I would 100% get the DCT if I was getting a Goldwing. Next up for me is the integrated Apple CarPlay and Android Auto right on the TFT on the dash. That is super convenient and super useful. You don't have to learn any new software. You just use the apps from your phone. It integrates with handlebar controls. It's not perfect, but it's very good, and I wish more motorcycle manufacturers would go this direction. Next up for me is the very reasonably low seat height. You know, I test a lot of adventure bikes. You've got seat heights that are way, way up there that only tall people can ride, and it's unfortunate. Here we've got a 29-inch seat height. Most people can be comfortable with it despite being a heavier bike. Also going with that, the low center of gravity. The opposed engine design of this, the low fuel tank that's under the seat, they've done their best to keep the mass low on the bike, and for a bike that weighs this much, it actually doesn't feel too bad. Next up for me is the extremely high build quality. The fit and finish, the paint, the controls, everything you touch or use on this bike is extremely high quality, and I really, really like that. Next up for me is the braking system on the Goldwing is phenomenal. 12 pistons of braking power up front. That's ridiculous. It is, you squeeze the brakes, and because they're linked, you can use either the front or the back brake lever. They both work really well. And you just, this bike, for how much it weighs, it's unbelievable how quickly you can stop this bike or slow down coming into a corner. Next up for me is the front suspension system. This wishbone design or Hosek design or whatever you want to call it, this non-traditional front suspension is incredible. It soaks up the bumps really, really well, despite having not a lot of travel. And when you're hard on the brakes, it doesn't dive in the front, and it's a magical system, and I highly recommend you experience this. Next up for me is the easily adjustable electric windshield while you're riding. One of the things I never liked about the older Goldwings was that you couldn't adjust the windshield while you were riding, and I'm always adjusting it based on how fast I'm going and the conditions and all that. I really love having the electric windshield. All right, so what are the downsides to the Honda Goldwing as I see it? Number one for me is there's no availability of radar-guided adaptive cruise control. That's a major disappointment on a bike in this category and at this price point, and I think that Honda needs to add that as soon as possible. There were many situations in touring with this bike on my trip that I would have really benefited from those long days of riding in traffic that's moving at different speeds from that radar-guided cruise, and I've tested it on other bikes, and it's really sad that this bike doesn't have it. It would be a much better bike if it had that. Next up for me is just the sheer weight and size and bulk of this bike is a lot to handle when you're pushing it around the garage or parking it. Of course, they do their best to manage that with the low center of gravity, the forward and reverse walk modes if you get the DCT, the low seat height, but still, it's a massive and very heavy motorcycle. Next up for me, I think that the side panniers or the side luggage bags, they're a little bit small at 30 liters per side. I'd like to see maybe a 40-liter bag, because when you're touring, I just find that you end up, especially if you have a passenger, you're going to take way more stuff than you think, and having larger side bags would be nice. Another downside for me is that I wish that the TFT, I know they've got this plastic cover over the whole dash, and I understand why it's set up this way and you have all the buttons, but I would like to have a touchscreen TFT, because after using it on the Africa Twin, I really, really like the touchscreen TFTs, and it'd be nice if Honda could integrate that here on the Goldwing. Next up for me is that there is a noticeable amount of significant engine heat on your body when you're riding this bike in the summer. The engine and the radiators put a lot of heat onto your body, and because of the full fairing, it's hard to get airflow to get that heat out, and you end up feeling very, very hot riding this bike when temperatures are warmer, as they are now in the summer. Next up for me is if you ride aggressively through the corners, you like to achieve some good lean angles, you're going to touch down hard on hard parts on this bike, whether it's the foot pegs or the exhaust, doesn't really matter. The point is, when you get to a certain lean angle, you're scraping hard parts. And let me tell you something, when you're leaning this thing over, all 900 pounds of it, almost 400 kilograms, and cornering aggressively, and you hit that hard part and you have no more lean angle to give, meaning I cannot tighten the radius of my corner with more lean angle. It is not possible. That is a scary moment. And I would like to see somehow more cornering clearance, because I know some people who ride Goldwings can ride pretty sporty, and it'd be nice to have more clearance. The next downside for me is I think that a bike at this price point and this level should have adaptive front lighting. So I showed you the night ride test. It doesn't lean the headlight or steer the headlight through the corners as a lot of other bikes do, and I feel that that's disappointing considering the level that this bike is at. Next up for me is the downside is I do feel that the suspension, and you can ask other Goldwing owners and groups if you don't believe me, but the suspension, despite everything good I've said about it, it still is underdamped and undersprung, especially if you carry a passenger and you carry luggage. You're going to notice that the suspension can be a bit floaty, can be a bit undersprung, a bit underdamped. This is a problem across the entire Honda lineup, and doesn't just apply to Honda, but a lot of manufacturers, unfortunately. But I would like to see that improved. And that's the reason that a lot of owners of these bikes will switch out these units for very expensive tractive, or I think it's traction dynamics actually, suspension. All right, let's talk about competition for the Honda Goldwing. So I've gotten a lot of questions on social media about this. So I want to talk about comparing it to an adventure bike, since so many of you have asked, and I think that indicates that a lot of people are looking at, especially the larger capacity adventure bikes, your GSs, your KTM 1290s, your Multistradas, as competitors to like a full-on touring bike. So what are the pros and cons? The pros of getting the adventure bike, it's much lighter, 200 to 300 pounds lighter in most cases, even comparing to the big adventure bikes. That's 90 to 130 kilograms less weight. That's a massive difference in weight. You're also gaining the off-road ability of an adventure bike, which you obviously don't have here. You can take the Goldwing on a smooth dirt road, but nothing more than that. The adventure bikes are more rugged if you drop them and have any sort of accident like that or a tip over. They have a little bit different ergonomics as well. So adventure bikes tend to have a little bit more leg room. They sit a bit higher up, and the riding position can be a little bit different than the Goldwing. So there's a lot of pros and cons. Now, what are you giving up by going to an adventure bike platform versus a bike like the Goldwing? Well, you're giving up a lot. You're giving up the incredibly smooth 6-cylinder engine. You're not going to find that on the adventure bike. You're giving up the low seat height of the Goldwing because adventure bikes have much taller seats. So if you're a shorter person or actually just a person of average height, adventure bikes tend to be too tall for you. That's not a problem here on the Goldwing. The wind protection, you'll obviously be giving that up by going to an adventure bike. Some of them have gotten better, but you still don't have a full fairing like you do here with the Goldwing. And then you'll be giving up all this integrated hard luggage and storage. You can add panniers to an adventure bike, but that's something you have to add on, and it doesn't work in the same way that this does. Okay, so a lot of you have also asked to compare this to like sport touring bikes. Now, in particular, I think a bike that I reviewed and said I thought was the finest touring bike in the world, the BMW R1250RT. Of course, now they brought out the new 1300RT, which I'm getting very soon for review. The reason that I thought the RT was the best overall touring bike is because it has a lot of the luxuries and amenities of this bike and more. You get adaptive cruise on that bike where you can't get it here. You get the electric windshield, you get a full fairing, you get integrated luggage. But what I like about the RT and bikes like that, although the RT is kind of the only one left, I think, that really does things that well, is that it's much, much lighter than this. It's about 200 pounds lighter or 90 kilograms lighter than this. That's a massive weight difference. The handling on the RT is much sportier, much more dynamic handling for aggressive cornering. It feels like a so much smaller and more fun, more agile motorcycle than this, but it still has a lot of the comfort of this. The smoothness on the Boxer engine is not nearly as good as this Goldwing engine. It's not even close. The RT has vibration at highway speeds through the handlebars. This does not. That's a big difference. Passenger comfort is better on a bike like this than something like the RT. So there's pros and cons there. If you're forcing me to choose one or the other, like I understand the benefits of this. There's a lot of things I love about it, but I would still choose the RT personally, and I still think it's sort of, in my opinion, for at least how I like to ride, the best touring bike in the world, because it combines the sportiness with the touring in a way that no other bike does, and I really appreciate that. At the end of the day, you're kind of comparing bikes in different categories. Adventure touring bikes, sport touring bikes. This is a luxury, like full dress touring bike, and it really sits in its own category. Some of you have also asked, like, should you just get the new Honda NT1100? It's, what is it, 11 grand? I mean, I went to the launch for that bike. I have a video on it. You know, it's less than half the cost of this bike. I mean, it's nowhere near the comfort, the refinement, the smoothness, the features, the luxury of this bike. Nowhere even near. But I think for a lot of people, that NT will fit the bill. You should go watch that review if you're interested in that bike. Now, what about comparing this to its traditional competitors? So as a heavyweight, full dress, luxury touring bike, you've got the BMW K1600GTL, and it's important, the L model, because they have different models like the Grand America and the Bagger and the GT, but you want the GTL to be a fair comparison. You've got the Harley, which is the Road Glide Limited, and you've got the Indian, which is the Pursuit. They're all around that $30,000 price point. Actually, the Goldwing is a little bit less than any of those I just mentioned. So let's start by comparing this to the BMW 1600 series of bikes. So the BMW uses an inline 6-cylinder engine, and it focuses on high horsepower. It's a much more horsepower than this. It's almost 160 horsepower. This is about 120, 125 if you get the manual. Huge difference there. This has the low-end torque, but the BMW has the high-end, high RPM horsepower. It's very fun, very engaging to ride. It's a huge difference in the engine. The center of gravity weight distribution is much better on the Goldwing. The 1600 BMW tends to carry its weight high. It feels tippy and top heavy, whereas this does not have that problem. In terms of a lot of the features and amenities, they compare, I think, pretty well. I like the Android Auto, Apple CarPlay you get with this. I like the DCT availability on this because that's really nice, and you can't get anything like that on the BMW, at least not yet, although they are starting to roll out their new ASA system on certain bikes. All right, now getting into the cruiser-based touring bikes that you may be cross-shopping. So people who want a Harley or an Indian, you may have loyalty towards going that direction, and I totally get that. And the specs or the performance or the objective data may not matter at all to you because you may just want that look, that sound, that feel, or you have affinity to that brand. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging that. But if you actually want to compare the Goldwing to those bikes, the Goldwing beats the cruiser-based tours in every imaginable sense in terms of the features, the technology, the handling, the performance, lighter weight, more comfortable, more amenities. There's a lot to be said for all that. Now again, it may not matter to you, and you may be okay with just having a heavier bike that doesn't handle as well, doesn't have as much power, doesn't have the features, and all those sorts of things. So I'm trying to say it in a nice way, but the Goldwing, from a technical point of view, there's so much better and more engineering and design that go into this. So that's how it compares. And on the Harley, you know, you'd be looking at the Road Glide Limited, probably, and the Indian, you'd be looking at the Pursuit. I think those are the ones that have the more modern fairing design and have the rear trunk or tour pack, as some of the manufacturers call it, to be comparative. They're a little bit more money, actually, than the Goldwing. So there's a lot there to keep in mind, and I think at the end of the day, it depends on what are you looking for out of your touring motorcycle. There's not really a right or wrong answer, but there's a lot of differences. Final thoughts on the Honda Goldwing DCT Tour. Now, way back at the start of this video, we asked a couple questions. Is this bike worthy of the $30,000 price tag? And does it still stack up in the face of ever-increasing competition from a lot of other motorcycles out there? My conclusion to both of those questions, or my answer, is a resounding yes on both accounts. Now, whether or not the Goldwing is going to be right for you is completely dependent on what you're looking for in a motorcycle and what your priorities are. If you prioritize ultimate smoothness and luxury and refinement and protection from the elements and ultimate passenger comfort and all those sorts of things, then you should be looking at a Goldwing. If you're looking to do a little bit more off-roading, maybe you want a smaller bike, maybe you can sacrifice in some of the comfort areas and you don't ride with a passenger as much, then maybe you need to look at those other smaller motorcycles. So there's not a right or wrong answer. It completely depends on what you're looking for. But I'll say this for the Goldwing. I think the value is very, very good out of this bike. When you look at something from the competition and what they cost, over $30,000, whether you're talking Harley, Indian, BMW, or anything else, this bike absolutely is incredible for the price in the engineering and the performance and the features that it has, and it is a phenomenal motorcycle in almost every single regard, despite some of the downsides that I mentioned. For the right person, for the right rider, the Goldwing is going to be an incredible motorcycle. You just have to figure out if that's you. And I hope this video has been useful in helping you to figure out whether or not it's right for you. If you want to support the channel and the work I'm doing here, there's ways to do that down below. I'd really appreciate that. Those two favors, please subscribe, please use my affiliate links, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up on the video. If you have questions, put that down below. Besides that, thanks for watching, ride safe, I'll see you out there.